Today we're looking at LeetCode question 88, merge sorted array. You're given two integer arrays nums1 and nums2 sorted in non-decreasing order and two integers m and n representing the number of elements in nums1 and nums2 respectively. Merge nums1 and nums2 into a single array sorted in non-decreasing order. The final sorted array should not be returned by the function, but instead be stored inside the array nums1. To accommodate this, nums1 has a length of m plus n, where the first m elements denote the elements which should be merged, and the last n elements are set to 0 and should be ignored. Nums2 has a length of n. The approach that we're going to be taking is the two-pointer technique, or merge from end. Here are our 2 pointers. And this approach is going to have a time complexity of O of m plus n and a space complexity of O of 1, and it's the optimal approach to this problem. Now let's walk through an example where nums1 is equal to 1, 2, 3, and m is equal to 3, nums2 is 2, 5 and 6, and n is also 3. Step 1, initialize 2 pointers, I, which is equal to m minus 1, which is 2, put it here. Then we need to have II, which is equal to n minus 1, which is 2, and we'll put that here. And then finally, this is where we'll be loading the sorted number, which is n plus n minus 1, and we'll put that here. Step 2, we need to iterate over nums1 and nums2 while I and II are greater than or equal to 0. So we can see that nums1i is currently equal to 3, and nums2ii is currently equal to 6. So we need to check which is larger, nums1 or nums2. We need to load the larger, so we can see that nums2 is larger, which is 6. So we want to load 6 into nums1 III, and then we need to decrement nums2 and nums1 III, and then we go to the next loop. So we can see nums2 is now equal to 5. We need to check which is larger, nums1 or nums2. We can see that nums2 is larger. So we want to update nums1 III to 5. And then we want to decrement nums2. And we want to decrement nums1 III. And then we'll start the loop over again. Updating nums2 equal to 2. Check which is larger. We can see that nums1 is larger, being 3. So we want to load 3 into nums1 III. And then we want to decrement nums1 pointer and nums1 III. Start the loop over again. We'll update nums1 and set it equal to 2. Check which is larger, nums1 or nums2. Load the larger of the two numbers into nums1 III, which is going to be 2. And then we need to decrement the index that we just loaded. So we can now see we've got to the end of nums2. So III is less than 0, so break this loop. And then step 3, iterate over nums2 while II is greater than or equal to 0. And set nums1 III equal to nums2 II, and then decrement II and III. This will ensure that you process all numbers in nums2. Thank you very much for following this video. It's as easy as that. Why not pause the video and try to implement a solution yourself? If not, stay tuned for my solution next. So we're going to solve LeetCode question 88, merge sorted array. You're given two integer arrays, nums1 and nums2, sorted in non-decreasing order, and two integers m and n representing the number of elements in nums1 and nums2 respectively. Merge nums1 and nums2 into a single array sorted in non-decreasing order. The final sorted array should not be returned by the function, but instead be stored inside the array nums1. To accommodate this, nums1 has a length of m plus n, where the first m elements denote the elements that should be merged, and the last n elements are set to 0 and should be ignored. Nums2 has a length of n. So if we look at the 3 examples they've provided, we've got nums1 is equal to 1, 2 and 3, m is 3, because we've got 3 numbers, and then nums2 is 2, 5 and 6, where n equals 3, and then the output is going to be 1, 2, 2, 3, 5 and 6. So we can clearly see that this is in order, and we've used all of the elements that came in through nums1 and nums2. Second example, we've got nums1 is equal to 1, and nums2 is equal to an empty array. So the output's going to be 1. And example 3, we've got nums1, we've got m is equal to 0, which suggests that, well, means that there's nothing in here. And nums2 is equal to 1, n is equal to 1, the output's going to be 1. Cool. If you followed along with my whiteboard walkthrough, then you know that we're using the two-pointer technique to solve this, and we're going to merge from the end through. So because we're merging in nums1, we're going to merge from the end of num1. So let's get into it. We're going to be solving this in Java, and let's go. So int I equals m, int I equals n. Of course we want a -1 because we're working with arrays, so -1. So this is pointer 1 and this is pointer 2. And finally, int I is going to equal m plus n minus 1. And the idea behind I is it's the position that we're going to load into nums1. I is the current position that we've got set in nums1, so it'll be 3 in this first iteration, and I is going to be used to loop through nums2. Cool. So while I is greater than or equal to 0 and I is greater than or equal to 0, then we want to check if nums1 I is greater than nums2 I. If it is, then we want to set nums1 I equal to nums1 I, and we want to decrement. Decrement I minus else. And the reason that we want to do that is because we want to load the largest number into the end of the sorted array. So else we want to set nums1 I equal to nums2 I, and then we want to decrement I, and every time we iterate over the array, we want to always decrement I. Cool. So that's the first part of this, but there's one that we need to do one other loop, and I'll explain why. So in a scenario where nums1 equals, say, 7, 8, 9, 0, 0, 0, then m is going to equal 3, and nums2 equals, say, 1, 2, 3, and n is going to equal 3. Well, if you look at this particular part of logic, what's going to happen is it's going to say, okay, well, I initially is going to be set equal to 2, so it's going to be pointing here, and it's also going to be, I is also going to be set to 2, and it'll be pointing here, and it's going to basically say, if 9 is greater than 3, which it is, then load 9 in here, and then decrement I, which is tracked through nums1, and then, so that's going to be then pointing at 8, and it's going to say, is 8 greater than 3? Yes, it is, so load 8 here. And then decrement the I, so I is now 0, so 0 is here, which is 7, and it's going to say, okay, is 7 greater than 3, which it is, and then load 7 in here, and then I is then going to equal -1, which is going to break us out of this while loop. That, if you can see the problem here, we haven't done anything with these nums2 in this scenario, which obviously we would want something like this. I would want 3, 2, and 1. So in order to achieve this, we need to do another while loop. So while I is greater than or equal to 0, then basically nums1 I equals nums2 I, and then we want to simply just decrement these as we'll be iterating over them. So I, and once I put these in, I believe that should be the solution. Let's see if it runs. Okay, perfect. Let's see if when I submit it, it works. Excellent. So according to this, it beats 100% for runtime, and it beats 17.69 for memory usage. However, I'm not entirely sure how this particular widget works, because it does fluctuate a lot when submitting solutions. But yeah, this is the optimal solution. It has an O of m plus n time complexity, and it has constant space. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please click like, and if you want to see more, click subscribe. And if there's anything that you think I can improve on, or any other videos that you'd like me to produce in the future, please leave a comment below and I'll get right back to you. Thank you.